I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine until the day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. Pretty crazy stuff, guys. Um, Obviously, we see here there's something truly incredible happening, which is Jesus is establishing the Lord's Supper. That's one of the last things he establishes with his people. And the Lord's Supper, communion, got my mum's mug here, as you can see. It says "Mother like no other." But the Lord's Supper, communion, is very important to us. Think about um, Paul in the New Testament. He talks about communion and he says, if someone takes us in an unworthy manner, then they pronounce judgment upon themselves. Now, we think about that, right? What we should assume that communion is something important, it's something literal, that it's not just a kind of an insignificant thing. One of the problems I've had before with a lot of interpretations of communion and the Lord's Supper is that they consider communion to be like just a symbol. You know what I mean? It's just a symbol. Don't take it for any more than a symbol. But I don't think that's true. I think it's a lot more than a symbol. I think it's a spiritual event. A lot of people would argue also a physical event, but that's up to debate. Johnny V Driver says, "Hi Sam, I'm on my dad's account. Love you, buddy. Can't wait to see you tomorrow at the outreach." Yeah, we got a homeless outreach on the west side happening tomorrow. That's gonna be really cool with our church. So yeah, exciting stuff, and we're doing it because we believe that Jesus has changed lives. That's why we're doing it. So let's go on. Um, let's transition. Let's see if this works. Oh, it works now. Nice. So we're gonna go to Mark 15, verse 21 to 41. It says, after the passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to a place called Golgotha, which means place of the skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them to decide what each should take. And it was the third hour when they crucified him, and the inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two robbers, one on his right and one on his left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "Aha! You who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him, saying to one another, he saved others, but he cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe. Those who were crucified with him also reviled him. And when the 6th hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land in the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour, Jesus cried with a loud voice, "Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani," which means, my God, why have you forsaken me?" And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, "Behold, he is calling Elijah." And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, "Wait, let's see whether Elijah will come to take him down." And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, "Truly this man was the Son of God." There were also women looking on from a distance, among whom was Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James, and the younger and of Joses and Salome. When he was in Galilee, they followed him and ministered to him. And there were also many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. Whoa, that's some pretty crazy stuff, guys. Heavy, heavy stuff. Jesus died. We need to be sure of that, everybody. Jesus definitely died. I've been having a Johnny V Driver. Tell me what John Vieira. Tell me what you think of that, because we were talking about that at school recently. Tell me if you got any thoughts on that. But we've been talking a lot about Jesus' death and resurrection, whether it's true or not. First we need to think about, did Jesus truly live, right? Because, I mean, like, if Jesus didn't live, if he didn't die, and if he didn't resurrect, then Christianity is in vain. Paul said, if he didn't rise from the dead, then your faith is in vain. How do we know Jesus lived? Well, almost every single historical scholar can agree on the fact that he lived. Jesus Christ existed at the time that the Bible describes him as existing. So, like, for example, there's more historical manuscripts that prove that Jesus existed rather than that Genghis Khan or Julius Caesar existed or Alexander the Great existed. In history, we kind of assume that Genghis Khan existed. So why wouldn't we assume that Jesus existed as well? You know what I mean? Okay, did Jesus die? That's the next part. I would say Jesus definitely died. In historical manuscripts such as Roman manuscripts like one of Tacitus. In fact, let's search this up just to be sure. Historical manuscripts proving Jesus died. Tacitus, who documented the execution, and Josephus, who recorded the crucifixion in the Antiquities of the Jews. Scholars generally accept these accounts as historically reliable. Tacitus, a Roman, not a believer, stated that Christ, was executed by Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. This was considered strong evidence because Tacitus was a hostile, non-Christian source. So we know that Jesus definitely died. So now we are left with basically two solutions, or two what do you call it, options. Jesus's body was missing. Okay, historical manuscripts and early sources from the 1st and 2nd century support the contention that Jesus' body was missing. So it's not a debated idea that Jesus and his body was missing on the 3rd day, right? So we're left with two options here. We could say Jesus was either, his body was either stolen by the disciples, or that he actually did the claim that he rose again from the dead. Because either way, no one found his body. You think about it, if they actually had his body and his body was rotting away in a tomb, which they knew where it was.